Mark Ridgway here on our final lecture on how to use PrayerMate. We'll just cover some random extended topics, advanced topics in this final talk. So first thing I want to talk about, if we go to lists, is the use of markdown language. So I've got a markdown language thing set up in Praise here. Here it is here. Okay, as you can see, greater than signs and hash signs and everything else. I'm not going to explain the detail of the markdown language. It's up to you to learn how to use it. You just Google markdown language and there'll be a list of things. It's fairly limited what you can do. So here is the markdown language for a particular thing that I created. Now what happens though is if you go to the settings, subject settings, you can enable markdown formatting on the subject, on the prayer subject. And as soon as you enable that, it gives you a warning. You need to look at how to use it. And come down, and it actually formats in a real nice format. Notice the little dots here. So I wanted to indent them in with spaces, but if you just put spaces in after the things, it doesn't work. You have to put another character like a dot followed by spaces in order to push it across. That's the way it is, and it's very useful. More useful is the fact that you can actually also include URLs. So you can actually create a URL in your prayer card, which is quite useful. And quite useful for several reasons, but the main reason, let's go to missions and I'll show you why. This is in Taiwan, and here we are. I'll just have a look at this prayer card here, and it has the markdown setting on, and as you can see, you've got the left hand bracket and the right hand bracket surrounding what is obviously a URL, and you can use this to put URLs in. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's a way around what I consider a deficiency in PrayerMate, in that you can include PDFs in your list. For example, we can add here to Susan, you can actually include a PDF attachment, and then it will come up saying where do you want to pull the PDF attachment in. I won't go any further. And you can put a PDF attachment into your prayer card. The difficulty with that is that you are limited in the number of files you can have in the database. That's a Google limitation, and I think it's a couple of 500 rings a bell, and that sounds quite a lot. You know, if you start including photos that you put in, and you've got a prayer letter from 10 different missionaries across a long period of time, you're going to blow that number for sure. So what I've started doing is creating my own set of PDFs in my OneDrive storage. It could be Google Drive storage or any other number of drive storages, and just creating a link to that, which I then pop in here. You could also have a link to a folder so you can see all the prayer letters for that particular missionary all lined up in your cloud storage. That's a much better way, I think, of handling it than just using PDFs. Though the PDF is an option, and you can just add individual PDFs. And it's limited to PDFs, whereas the OneDrive thing is not limited to that. It can be anything. It could be photos or whatever. Yeah, you'd have to play with those options, and these are advanced. Most people might want to avoid that, and many people might want to just simply use the PDF attachment because it's just a little bit easier than setting up cloud storage. But you will eventually hit a brick wall. The final subject I want to talk about is about archives. If we go back to all the lists that I've created, you can see the little symbol here, which is the archive storage. If you click on that, you'll see your archived subjects. And you'll come a time when subjects will have to be archived. For example, you may be praying for a particular church ministry, and one day it's announced it's shutting down, and therefore you would want to archive all the prayers that you've built up for that ministry over the years. And so you could stick it in archive. There's some difficulties with that, and it's Well, I won't go into the details. There are difficulties inputting it into the archive. It's a bit clunky. Another way of doing it is to do this. And I've created, in this case, an archive church list. And what I've done is I have set the list settings so that we always pray for this list, but we always pray for 0 items. That is, this list will never be prayed for, and it's controlled. It'll never pop up. And so you can actually move your items directly into this list. Do missions, and we're going to archive Susan in Taiwan. We've just done that one. We can just simply go to the subject settings and simply change the list to archive church. Okay, if you go back, you'll find that archive church now has Susan in Taiwan. And there's advantages in that. It can be searched, whereas the archive can't be searched, and so on. There's quite a lot of advantages. And of course, this is quite visible, and you have the ability to pull things into lists, so that's quite easy, much easier to work with. And of course, these things will never be prayed for, and you just leave them sitting at the bottom of your lists there. Okay, I think that's about it, and I hope you've enjoyed this quick run through. I think I've covered just about everything. There's not much that I haven't covered. I'm sure there are a few things, but the most important thing is to experiment and not to be afraid and get yourself into a pattern. And I hope I've been of service to you. Thank you.